Welcome back, guys. I've got our special guest on yet again. We've had Sean on before to give us the lowdown on the fundamentals of Cardano because we love to look at charts, but we also need someone to do some of the research into the Cardano space for us. Sean, thanks again for joining us on the channel.
Thanks very much for having me on your channel, Jason. I'm very excited to talk to you today and to talk about the fundamentals. You do a great job with the technicals, and I hope to spread some light on the fundamentals.
This is a well-balanced collaboration here. Let's
Absolutely.
jump in. Let's jump into the first thing because Cardano price has been lackluster. Let's find out why it has been lackluster. Why isn't the price of Cardano going up?
Yes, well, that's the question that, and thanks for everyone who comments on my video, but I get that quite a few times every day. So obviously over the last 3 months, it's been a mixed picture for Cardano. Obviously we had this run up from, near $1, and kind of obviously dipped down to $1 multiple times. Then we just had this massive parabolic run up, which of course was related to the hype around smart contracts. In kind of early September, what caught a few people out was that it wasn't at the date of this release for smart contracts. It was a little bit before it in kind of early September. And that was even more true for Cardano altcoins. But that was kind of expected to a certain degree, if you remember what happened during the Merry hard fork, because of course it was about a week beforehand of the Merry hard fork. And I was, mentioning this in my Patreon, that you want to make sure that your dollar cost averaging out at a steady rate, because no one knows exactly when the top is. And if everyone expects it to be on a given day, like the release date, which is super obvious, then it's probably going to happen a little bit before that. And it was we had this kind of like a slowdown where it was we had this massive run up, and then it was kind of 290, 295 or whatever, then 315. So it was kind of clear, a few warning signs after that. That being said, obviously we've kind of had this sell-off similar to what we've had kind of back in after March, after we had the Merry hard fork. Then there was kind of like a few, hopium stories where you had the Coinbase listing that bumped it up to 150. You had the Africa deals that, again, another run up here. And then you had more hype around Tesla potentially buying ADA, which hasn't really come to fruition quite yet. But that was kind of like the hopium in between. So now the question is, well, the next major update for Cardano could be quite a way away, and it won't happen in this cycle. If you're looking at Voltaire. So is there any reason for Cardano to bounce back, or should people have already gotten out of it, or, continue to get out of it if you haven't? Well, what I'm looking at now over the next few months is not so much, the next major update from the Cardano ecosystem. It's more catalysts like this. But what I'm really looking for is when DeFi is ready for Cardano. So when you have the Plutus application backend, when you have the projects actually start launching on the network. That's important for two reasons. The first reason is that, well, it's a lot more hype. It's a lot more speculation. It's almost like, we have a new casino being built. I wonder why this is the analogy for crypto, but you have a new casino being built and people will want to come in and speculate on the new projects on the network. Now, of course, a lot of the altcoins in 5 years' time, when they have their roadmap achieved, will be very, very valuable. But in the short term, we know that there's a little bit more speculation involved. So there will be kind of the hype around the ecosystem the same way it was fundamentally driven on Solana first, where people were like, oh, the fees are cheap. We can buy NFTs, we can buy projects. And then that kind of led to Sol exploding. The same thing I think will be true with ADA, where you have the next bull run for Cardano will be generated first from the grassroots fundamentals, more and more projects and NFTs expanding the ecosystem, which will drive up the price. But then what we're also going to see is we're going to see somewhat of a supply squeeze where that ADA is being used by liquidity for projects. Then as more and more projects set up things like ISPOs, where they're essentially, in order to get tokens, early in these projects as an early investor, you stake to their stake pool. More and more people will be buying ADA in order to be able to get those specialized rewards. Because even if you don't like Cardano, if you happen to like a project on the network, then you have to buy ADA. You have to pay to play, basically.
Is that what the ISPO is? Just to explain that for people who don't know, because we tend to look at a lot of charts.
Yeah, so the ISPO, I'm sure many of your viewers who staked your stake pool, they're aware that you can stake and you can get ADA rewards. So an ISPO, an initial stake pool offering, is essentially where you stake ADA to a project stake pool, and you can get like 50-50 rewards, or you can get like 100%. So instead of being paid in ADA as your delegation rewards, you get paid in early tokens of that project, or you can get paid 50-50 ADA and tokens.
Thank you for explaining that, because I didn't know that. So Much appreciated. I'm sure I'll get a ton of comments saying, "How could you not know that and invested in it?" Mate, I look at
No,
charts
no,
and I just
it's
make
a
sure
lot of
I'm winning.
people. It's kind of a newer thing, especially it'll be something that's kind of more known as it happens over the next few months.
That sounds good though, because at least you can stake, like we've talked about. Got a staking pool. Guys on the channel know they can stake to the Investor Accelerator. Links are in the description. But once you've staked, you're getting your ADA returns. And then if you like a project on the network, maybe it's similar to the dot parachain where you uh, delegate your ADA that's there to that particular project so that they can launch. Is that kind of what it's about?
It's kind of similar. So for DOT, the DOT is locked up for a period of time, but you get the DOT. What's similar is that you get the DOT back at the
Mhm.
end of the lockup period. So there's not as much risk. The same thing is true with Cardano. The only thing you're risking, and this is something you do have to factor in, is the missed reward. So, if you delegate to
Mm.
a project and they end up, being terrible and the value goes to zero, then you have missed out on your whatever percentage rewards. If you stake for 3 months, you've probably missed out on a 1.5% return. But I think a lot of people would prefer that risk compared to a lot of the risk associated with getting rug pulled on other networks.
Fair point. Fair point. So we've looked at what's potentially driving the market down at the moment. We don't really have any more catalysts at this point until maybe the network's ready to go, the Plutus application backend's ready so that they can all talk to each other and we get some DeFi launching. What about NFTs? Is this going to be the same thing like we saw with Solana and Ethereum that is pushing the network? Do you think it's going to be the same thing here where NFTs will bump the price up?
Yeah. So, if we look at Ethereum or we look at, Solana, you can look at either of them. When NFTs are doing well, the price of the project tends to do well as well. It gets a bump. Now, sometimes NFTs can be inversely correlated to the market. So when the market's not doing super well, as a whole, NFTs are starting to pop off, and we're kind of seeing NFTs go down as the market goes up because it's kind of the same funds. But the project where the NFTs are based on are often the ones benefit. Why you see Solana do very, very well during the summer, even though everything else wasn't doing super great because it did have NFTs popping off and people investing in the projects. I think one of the biggest opportunities right now in crypto, and it's being more exploited every day, so it's kind of being lost. The opportunity is going down a little bit every day, is actually NFTs on Cardano. So we've had NFTs being big on Ethereum, we'll have NFTs being big on Solana, and now I think the next thing is NFTs being big on ADA. And while Solana is still very much in the early stages, and you can find a lot of great projects by looking at the upcoming projects and whatnot and minting them. You have everyone looking at Ethereum, especially if you're newer to the NFT game. It's probably better to be looking at somewhere where there's less competition. Some of these websites like whencnft.io, they have like they don't have a ton of people looking at them, let's say. So there's less competition. You can potentially get in on the next Bored Ape Yacht Club pretty early. And also, I think a lot of more of the quality projects, especially the ones building for the long term, are going to be built on Cardano over the next 3 to 6 months, especially because Cardano is going to have, of course, relatively cheaper fees to Ethereum. And of course, it's more decentralized, so it doesn't run the risk of as many as the downtime that Solana had in the past. So I think a lot of the high quality projects that are built to last will be built on Cardano. But I'm building a NFT project on Cardano. It's an NFT gaming project where
Cool.
there'll be an incubator for other games to essentially test, and people can win NFTs and stuff like that from those other projects. And there's a lot more. You can check out the roadmap for the Cardano Croc Club. I
I'll
won't go
leave a
too
link
much
to
into
that
that.
in
I
the
don't want to
description
plug.
down below.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. I'll
is
leave a
it?
link to the Croc Club in the description. It's good that you're testing it out on the network. Even though people can buy them or get minted them, it's so you're testing it out so you know later on whether it's a good project or if there are some problems with it that we can't necessarily be told by Charles because maybe he doesn't want to tell us the problems that are going on, but you can actually test it for yourself.
Yeah, well, I've been very, very eager all the way to build on Cardano as soon as we have smart contracts. Now, of course, people have been doing bootlegging NFTs for quite a while, but I kind of wanted to wait for smart contracts to come out to kind of make it as easy for the user as possible. And I'm very, very excited to be integrating a lot of DeFi stuff into the project over the coming months when that's available. for Cardano projects. It's when we have that Plutus application backend and whatnot. I'm not really, I wouldn't say I'm so much testing a project. Of course we do have to, there's that little bit embedded risk that will there be a delay on Cardano of that stuff coming out, which it's not the most unlikely thing given Cardano's track record with some delays. But I think eventually when we're looking at it, projects that are built to last, yes, that there'll be kind of speculation hype around every project in the short term. When you're looking for those high quality 1%, 5% NFTs that I really want to build with my team, that's why we're looking at, okay, what's going to work for the next 5 years, not just the next 5 weeks.
Sure. So in the meantime, while ADA's doing its thing in the background, hopefully getting some more of the back end built, what are you most bullish on in the cryptocurrency space, cryptos?
Yes, that's a great question, Jason. It's a question I also get quite a lot. If Cardano's not doing well,
a good segue.
What should we be looking at? Well,
I mean, we look at it all day, every day, right? We look at cryptocurrency all day, every day. There's got to be something that we're more bullish on than others.
Yeah, well, you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, of course. So right now, what I'm thinking about in the short term is kind of Bitcoin sucking up a lot of the funds in the market. This is something that we've seen throughout October so far, where Bitcoin is doing very, very well relative to altcoins. Now, of course, there's still altcoins that are matching Bitcoin's percentage because, 16% over the last 7 days isn't too crazy. But if you think about it before, where Bitcoin was moving 5% and altcoins were moving 50%, now it's more so Bitcoin's moving 5%, altcoins are moving 20%. So a lot of the funds that are generally going into altcoins are going into Bitcoin to kind of fuel the pump, which is a very, very similar move to what we saw late last year and early this year, which of course was followed by a massive altcoin season. So short term, I think Bitcoin's bullish, but after that, coins I'm looking at XRP, not as a coin that I'm bullish on long term fundamentally. I don't like the centralized nature of Ripple Labs, but if XRP does get a favorable settlement in the lawsuit, which I think has a good chance of happening this year, of course it's not a lock, then Ripple is just going to shoot up straight away. So it's definitely one of the more riskier plays that's not based on a known price catalyst like parachains or DeFi coming out in Cardano. But if it happens, there's more risk, but there's also more reward. Obviously Solana, it's kind of slowed down recently. The chart is kind of just getting is a little bit tired recently, but a lot of the kind of speculation and hype in Solana with NFTs and DeFi has kind of phased out in the short term. So, Solana is a project that time and time again, people said, well, it's never going to survive at $40. It was at like $6 a few minutes ago. It's never going to stay at 80. It was at 40 a few minutes ago, and then it just keeps going up and up and up. So no matter where you seem to say it's going to stay, it doesn't seem to stay there for long. But it's kind of got slightly a more bullish pattern of what Cardano is doing, where it kind of had this early run up and now it's kind of in an accumulation phase right now. I don't think that Solana is going to have a crazy pump until the end of the year when everything's going parabolic, assuming we do get that 2017 end of bull run style parabolic finish. And what I'm basically saying is that I don't think Solana is going to outperform other altcoins. One altcoin that I do think has a lot of gains left, though, is Polkadot. So Polkadot at $40, mentioned it so many times. I got sick of talking about it during the summer in my Patreon group at $10, $12, $14, whatever. It was just ridiculous because a lot of the funds that's in one smart contract. So when the hype is building around Cardano for the release of smart contracts, a lot of those same funds are being taken out of your Polkadot, out of your Polygon, which is another coin I'm very bullish on as well. And but of course, it's all kind of swings and roundabouts. So now when the hype passes from Cardano momentarily and the profits are taken, then they have to go somewhere else. So they're going into Ethereum, they're going into Solana, and they're going into Polkadot. Well, actually, they're coming out of Solana as well. But they're going into Polkadot, they're going into Polygon, and they're also going into Bitcoin in the short term. That being said, with parachains, if you look at what's happened to Kusama, I think it's going to be the exact same story as what happened with Polkadot. So with Kusama, what we saw was, okay, Kusama parachains are announced and, the price spikes. Kusama
bring it up on the chart there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you look at what happened after Kusama. My spelling was not my strongest suit. Kusama.
Sorry, I put you on the spot. I won't do that again.
No,
I'm not going to cut that out.
Spelling was not my strongest suit. It was more of a numbers guy. But if you kind of look at what happened, we had kind of like the massive run up after Kusama parachains were announced, and after that, you kind of had it fizzle out a little bit. But since parachains are this ongoing process, where it's not just one big price catalyst and it's constantly improving the fundamentals, so to speak, then you're kind of seeing the continued bull run. So I think we'll see a similar move for Polkadot, where we kind of have the initial hype explode around parachains, and maybe they'll take DOT to only $50 or $60. Maybe they'll take it more like to 80 to 100. We kind of have to wait and see over the next month or so. But after that's kind of passed out, I think we'll see a consolidation for DOT, and then just a steady climb. Because the biggest problem with DOT was, I think it was very much in institutional hands during the summer. So, sorry, during the summer, when it kind of had this massive drop, people were shocked. But if you look at where the institutions were holding altcoins, Polkadot was always at the top of the list. And of course, they were the first ones to paper hand it during the summer. So I think that's why Polkadot had so much of a sell-off. And of course, people are like, well, parachains, we've been talking about them all year, but where are they actually? But now that they're actually becoming a reality, you're starting to see that momentum and the institutions are very much coming back into Polkadot in a big way.
Yeah, we can definitely see that in the pricing. You can see it on the Polkadot Bitcoin chart. I mean, we've talked a lot about a lot of different smart contract platforms, but I reckon one final question, one of the biggest questions of them all, especially for a Sean Benson channel, is, you ready for it? ADA price prediction for 2021. I needed something for the title and the thumbnail. Yeah,
I'll give you something. So I've kind of been thinking about my ADA price prediction recently. And back in kind of February, March, I started my channel late January, but kind of back in February, March, when Cardano was kind of down here at kind of 30, 40 cent, I started talking about, okay, what is my price prediction for Cardano? It wasn't just one price prediction for 2021. I was kind of segmenting a little bit because, of course, we did have this massive catalyst. So when I was looking, after we had this run up here, I was like, okay, where are we going for the full release of smart contracts? And my target was $3 to $5. We got that by the skin of our teeth. But if Bitcoin hadn't crashed back in April, might have been closer to the $5 side. But anyway, we got it around 315. After that, we've seen some consolidation, as I'm talking about on my channel, and everyone expects after you have a hype event, so to speak, you kind of have that sell-off. But now, once we're moving into the price being determined more by the fundamentals, by the projects building on it, by NFTs, by actually people using the ecosystem and buying ADA to stake it to different pools and whatnot. After that, I think what we're going to see is not just this big rocket up until we kind of have, well, I'll talk about that in a second, but we're kind of more going to see is more of like a steady climb, like what Polkadot's seeing right now. So Polkadot, that is having that steady climb based on the fundamentals. I think that we're going to kind of level out somewhere around $2, maybe dip a little bit lower, somewhere between $1.50 and $2 at the lowest point. And then we're going to start building up over the next few months as those DeFi backends get built on Cardano. Then after that, I think we'll have at some point a kind of a BNB style explosion, where once BNB was the new hot thing, we essentially had what?
That's big.
Yeah. But when BNB was down at 130, people were like, there's no way I'll get up to 500. What happened was everybody, the grandmother was investing in projects on the Binance Smart Chain, and so BNB exploded. It first of all kind of built up steady based on the fundamentals. I think it'll be the same thing for Cardano, and then at some point people will be like, oh wow, there's a real supply shortage here, and they start just buying it. And then that's where you kind of get these crazy moves in a short period of time, more so towards the end of the cycle. So to answer your question in a long, detailed way,
the ADA price prediction?
Well, I like to give people a little bit of details, Jason.
It's good.
So
it is.
I would say is, originally I was looking at $7 to $10 for the end of cycle. And if the cycle ends in 2021, I still think that is the realistic range. If it's an 80K Bitcoin, it's kind of more towards the $7 side, more so 100K Bitcoin, more so towards the $10 side. But what I've actually thought about since then is that we're actually looking at more of an extended cycle. So we're looking at the cycle extending into 2022. And if that's the case, then there's more room for altcoins to build up more momentum over a longer period of time and actually reach higher price targets. So even though it's less bullish in 2021, we might only reach, $5 or $6 in 2021, if the cycle doesn't end in 2021, it gives more room to get past $10, maybe up to 12 or even 15 if things get really crazy next March or June.
12 to 15. We're currently at $2, so that gives us
it's definitely a climb, but when Cardano was back down at 30 cents, no one would have said it would get to $3. I don't think.
Definitely not. So you look at it, maybe about a 7 to 8x return from this current price point of around $2.
Yes, it's certainly, given that the fact that everything else is kind of pumping while Cardano was sold off by 30% in the last month, it's definitely the coin in the top 10 that I'm most bullish on right now.
Yeah, I definitely like the longer consolidation periods rather than it shooting off to the moon. So at least that's leaning to that
slow
side.
And steady wins the race, basically.
That's it. It's leaning to that for ADA. So I reckon that's a fantastic place to wrap up. Check out Sean's links down below. NFT collection is down there as well to learn a bit more about that. Subscribe to the channel. Link is down there. We'll get Sean on again. It's always a pleasure talking with you about the fundamentals of the big projects, in particular Cardano. Appreciate it, mate.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Jason. And you're welcome on my channel anytime.
We'll be over there. Go and check out my video on Sean's channel as well. Catch you next time, guys. Till then, peace out.